The first cassette tape release I did was the Drunks with Guns reissue cassette tape, and mostly because that was the only format I could get Mike to sign off on. I wanted to do a vinyl version of that first LP, and he was like, well, how about a cassette tape? And I was like, yeah, I'll do a cassette tape. Do you also want to do an LP? And he said no. So it exists on cassette tape as a reissue, and then we did the second Drunks with Guns tape. So just like a couple years after we started the label, we started doing cassette tapes, and you know, there's been like 5 or 6 since then. Pretty much all the releases that we've put out on vinyl, we've done cassettes for in the past couple of years. I like the portability is one of my favorite parts of the cassette tape. The cheapness of it is awesome. It's cheap to make and fast to make too. So if like there's a release that's done and a band's hitting the road, but the vinyl won't be ready, you could press up a bunch of cassette tapes or dub them yourself if you wanted to. Some people would complain about the audio fidelity of cassette tapes, but I find that at times it can kind of enhance the listening experience. For example, the Heater record we did is, I certainly wouldn't call it high fidelity, but it's a fairly clean sounding recording, and on cassette there's this extra layer of hiss that kind of like adds some grit to it that, you know, it kind of, for guys like me who like noisier stuff, it adds this cool element that you don't get if you would take those recordings and put them on vinyl or put them on CD or whatever. So far, the way it's worked out, just for all of our releases, and that's not to say that it would always have to be this way, but so far what's happened is the bands have all come to us with finished recordings that they paid for. And we offer a 20% product split of the pressing we do on both vinyl and cassette tape. So if we press up 100 cassette tapes, they get 20 copies for free to sell. And then if they want any more than that, they just buy them at what we paid for them. We sell cassette tapes. They cost about $1.20 to $1.50 to make, and you know, after shipping and all that. And we sell them for $5. So yeah, we're not really sticking it to anybody as far as that stuff's concerned, and it is a pretty decent markup and stuff for the bands on tour and whatnot. And like I said, people, you know, what's $5 for a cassette tape? Big deal, you know? It's price of another beer at the bar, you know, unless you're drinking PBR or something. Then it's 2 beers. 1 cassette tape, 2 beers. You do the math, you know? Yeah, why don't you start it off with... Aside from the Caca cassette tape, I believe all the J cards have been like pro-printed at National Audio Company. The Caca tape and like my personal mixtape things, you know, I'll collage them or whatever. But as far as permanent releases go, the Caca cassette tape was hand screened by members of the band, and they turned out really amazing. The artwork's actually different than the screened jackets for the LPs, and it's just incredible looking. But the rest of them have just been printed pretty standardly at National Audio Company. I think the future is bright, seriously, though, because, you know, people are keen on the format. More and more people seem to be like going out of their way to dig up old cassette decks. There's something very, you know, for people my age, people in their mid-20s, maybe even into the late 30s and early 40s, we kind of all grew up with cassette tapes. So that was the first format that I bought, like, my first, you know, legit music on. Like, I didn't buy CDs because I didn't have a CD player yet, and vinyl was like my parents' format, you know, and cassette tapes were like the hot new format of the time. So there's a bit of nostalgia for people like like me, and you know, I'm sure about everybody else that you talk to that runs a cassette tape label, most of them happen to be in their late 20s or early 30s, and I think, yeah, nostalgia probably has a lot to do with that. I don't know what the reason is behind buying them. I buy them because they're cheap, but ultimately I want to own everything on vinyl if possible. But if that's the only way something's available, then you buy it on cassette tape, or you know, 8-track or laser disc or whatever. You gotta have it, you know.